When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ludlow, and enjoy today's episode. What would you say you've enjoyed most about being there at Discovery Land as far as at your level, being a corporate position and maybe mentoring, coaching new veterans coming into the industry? And as I know, I did a little poll on LinkedIn to find out what people were looking for in a EP school. And I think it was number one was medical. They wanted medical training. And secondly was they want to know how to break in the industry. So like maybe resume writing, have a good resume to even get your attention. And, everybody wants to, hard skills and, Jason Bourne, tactical skills, style experience. But we're not all Jason Bournes either. And what would your advice be to those guys that want to break in the corporate arena? I mean, let's say they don't have any military law enforcement background. They just want a shot at it.
Well, I don't, to your point, I don't think you have to be former military to break into the security industry. I think that's the one thing I've noticed in the last, couple of decades too. I can think of a lot of guys and gals that I know that are extremely proficient, and I would follow them today who never served a day in the military. So it really comes down to how they've applied themselves and within their skill set and what they're learning. And then, to your point, it's the leadership that they have taken. The leadership they have learned, and maybe they did learn over the years by other, just as I have. I've learned so much over the years by guys and gals who were in the military and who were not. I can think of a few of my senior leaders over the years who had no military experience whatsoever, but man, they were great leaders. So, I am a big sponsor of veterans. I do, post jobs quite a bit and share jobs and try to promote veterans to apply for it just because I think our veterans need a little boost. But at the same time, if you're coming into the corporate industry, security industry, and you're trying to get an edge, you're right. If a guy or a gal has served 10, 15 years or 4 years in the military, they do bring a little bit of a uniqueness to them and a skill set that you can begin to leverage into other positions. So how do you do that if you haven't had that? Maybe you're coming straight out of college or university. I think you have to find that specialty. Again, you have to, if you're writing a resume, what is unique about you? Maybe it is a second language. If you've only got, your college or university background, it's like applying for an academy, military academy. How do you get into the academy? You have to set yourself apart from everybody else. It was either sports, it's academics, it's language. What is your unique skill set? And if you don't have anything truly unique, you better network. You better network strong. And you find guys that are willing to get to know you a little bit and to give you a chance. It's hard to be given a chance just off a piece of paper, but it's a lot easier if I'm sitting at a picnic, at a barbecue, at a bar, at an event, and I've met some friends. And those friends are introducing me and talking about me, and maybe that person will give me a shot. So if you're keeping yourself in a vacuum and you're only trying to get a job based on a document that you're writing and you don't have a lot of experience, it's a long shot. It's competitive out there. So you better know somebody. You better be working your network, or you better be continued to go to schools and training to develop a niche, something unique about you. I would say most veterans come out of the service with that niche. We're well-trained individuals, and the government has spent a lot of money training us, and that's our niche. So if you're not from the services and you're not a veteran, then what's your niche? And as you know yourself, our network is pretty tight within the veteran community, and we do try to support each other and help each other out. So I think, to your earlier question, if I'm not from the military and I'm just trying to break into the industry, how do I get in? You better create a niche, and you better work your network and look for an opportunity. And sometimes that opportunity doesn't mean it's the best high paid job. You may be sitting in a command post at a house for a couple of years. You may be driving the nanny around. You may be doing all kinds of things that you're not happy about, but you're working it and you're serving and you're doing your part until you can find the next opportunity. If you truly want to be in this industry.
You brought up an interesting point, Mike, because I've been hearing a lot of guys and gals, or a lot of younger agents, I guess, is what I'm hearing. They don't want to pay their dues. They want to make that $700, $800 a day, and they quit.
They want it now. They want it now.
Yeah. They just don't want to pay their dues. And then another thing I'm finding out too, I was talking to John Fisher. His wife works with veterans, and it was, a statistic that surprised me that most vets only last 90 days in a corporate position because they can't hack it. And I guess they're so used to being like spoon fed on what they need to do, and they can't really think for themselves, is what I'm hearing out there for the new veterans coming into the corporate world. And I don't know if I've seen that myself, but that was a troubling number, to hear that. I'm like, really? Wow. 90 days and they're cut. I haven't
seen that statistic. I haven't, I'd have to think about that for a minute. I have seen some guys and gals that come in, maybe did 4, 5, 6, 7 years in the military and come out, and they're in a particular demographic of age. Maybe you're right. I have to think about this a minute.
Okay.
My son is even in that sort of category to a degree. He's in his mid-30s, and he served time in the military. And when he got out, what he wanted to do next, he didn't have a lot of patience for it. So I could see where you could have a lack of patience. But even looking at how he was able to be successful, he rolled his sleeves up and he worked very hard at it. And he paid his dues. And maybe that's because of mentoring, from somebody like myself. But I don't know, Mark. I haven't necessarily seen that. I have seen where that generation, let's call it your late 20s and early 30s, they're not as patient, maybe as you and I were, and they were just brought up in a different way, no different than our parents. Mm-hmm. We would look at them and couldn't understand how you could work for the same company for 40 years and never take a day off. We think differently than our parents did. So I think it's a generational thing. But at the same time, I've seen some of these guys that are just wicked smart and how fast they pick up things.
True.
So maybe it's, if they're not able to be successful in 90 days, I almost think that would be more of an attention thing than it would be capability. Because I find that generation very smart.
Very bright. They understand technology.
And they're not willing to settle. So maybe that's it too. I mean, I was willing to do the hard job for a few years and settle doing that. And maybe it's just a generational thing, but I don't know. I'd hate to throw that blanket across all of that generation and say that's not, but I haven't seen that statistic. That's very interesting. That's
I think what John said was they have to be given more precise directions on what they need to do for that task, and they just kind of check out. Then I've heard too, a lot of these younger generation coming in the industry, they want to make that $800 a day, and they don't want to pay their dues and earn it. And I'm hearing that they don't care about earning respect among their colleagues and peers. And that's the big thing. Get that respect, and once you get that respect, you get that stamp of endorsement. And the next thing you get referred, you start working like a madman out there and start jumping around in the circuit. But I think, paying your dues is so critical. You just gotta, like in the service, you gotta earn our stripes or our rank, same thing. But in the private side, you could just call it making more money.
I do think that is a generational thing. And again, it's not a blanket. I was helping a guy recently get his package in for the Air Force Academy. He's like 19, 20. And he's one of the most respectful, disciplined young men I have seen in a while. And I was very impressed with him. And I have no doubt he's going to have a bright future, in the military and academies. But I can remember, Mark, when I was making a transition from Europe, when I was in the military, and I had a special duty assignment at the Air Force Security Forces Academy for a couple of years. And I remember before I left Europe, and this was in 92, so if we think about it, 92, we were getting recruits that I recall us calling back the academy and going, what are you guys doing at academy, because we're getting guys that are just like, lax, not showing up for appointments, lazy, lack of discipline. No, yes, sir, no, sir. It was always yeah, or something like that. And you're like, what is going on? So when I got to the academy in 92, 93, 94 as an instructor, I had a hard time. I remember I had several letters of reprimand because I was not nice to some of these students. And I was told, you can't touch them. You can't swear at them. You can't be too hard at them. And I'm not going to throw the Marines under the bus here, but I think the Marines were the first one to come out with a timeout card or the stress card. I'm stressed. You can pull that card out, stress out card. So, I'm sitting here in a country 400, in this building that's 400 years old. And today we went up to the William Wallace Memorial, and I think about the soldiers who fought, during Wallace's time. And for anybody who's listening, that would be Braveheart,
Braveheart.
Mel Gibson. Yep. But that was 1200s, and you look at the weaponry they use, and you look at the military tactics, and that's when men were men. I mean, that's some tough times. So without a doubt, every generation we get a little bit lighter, a little bit easier. We want things faster, and I can't say that's the wrong thing. I mean, you want to take shortcuts sometimes, but you still want to do it the right way. So, I don't know. I think we've changed a lot over the years. I look at my son's generation. At the same time, they were ones that paid some of the highest price in their last couple of decades of war, and they did some remarkable things. They're, these are some great troops, some great heroes. We lost a lot of treasure over the last couple of decades on probably a senseless war.
Yes.
So I can't make it a blanket statement about the guys you just mentioned, but I do think we're just changing. Each generation, we do get a little bit softer, I think.
Comes with time, softer, gracious. Do you think we need a harder military? I see our opponents being more cyber. I really don't see it as wars of bullets and blood. And I mean, we got the thing going on over there in Ukraine, but I see war becoming more cyber, more espionage, more stealing, more currency wars with China and America. I don't really see tanks and battalions anymore like we used to. What's your thoughts on that?
No, I think that's a good point. I mean, I think, other than what we're watching in Ukraine, as we see, there's still elements of the old times, the old days, where they are fighting street to street. But between technology, weaponry, I think you could probably still see a theater of war where you're still going to need some of that. But to your point, when so much of our capability is depending on technology, is depending on equipment, that new advanced type of war conflict, when you can knock out, a country's cyber capability, and as we're seeing with some of the weapon systems that were, that sort of, look at what's happened with the Havana, syndrome, if you will. Somebody's doing some things. Somebody's testing some new equipment. And so when does that begin to switch? When do we, to your point, when do we get away from bullets and bombs and we start using some other high-speed technology that changes the entire battlefield? When does AI become more into play? Which is interesting, I think, when you're talking about espionage. I think we're seeing, we're kind of entering back into a little bit of a Cold War. We're starting to see a lot more spies that are out there. Because part of that is trying to understand what the adversary is doing. So you're going back to a little bit of an old school. I think, I saw some reports where Vienna has become the new hotspot for spies again, kind of like it was about 40, 50 years ago. So, what comes around and goes around again. But no, I don't know. It's something I try not to think too much about.
They get you all depressed.
Holy cow! Yeah,
It spins your head in cycles. You know what blows me away is, Elon Musk saw an opportunity. He launched that Starlink satellite above Ukraine.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden everybody's getting their, direct link to their phones to upload information within
Fantastic.
seconds. I was like, holy crap. It took a guy from the private side to be innovative, to take his satellite system over the Ukrainian people to where they could communicate and find out what was really going on. And I heard Russia was like, holy crap, is this true? And I don't know, that's what hearsay, of course. But Elon Musk, ingenuity, technology, and satellite links, it's just like, it blows me away that could change the whole scope of a whole operation, a whole war, and just by satellite links. It was crazy to me. I'm like, wow,
that's fantastic. Fantastic story. And you're right. I mean, if you go back through the decades and centuries, there's always been somebody that thinks outside the box. To your earlier point, a lot of times in the military, we put ourselves in a box. We think a certain way. We're led a certain way. We make decisions based on hierarchy. But when you take somebody like Elon or some other exceptional, minds out there, they think differently. And because of that, there's very few limitations that some of these guys think about. So, yeah, I don't think that's new. Like you've seen it throughout the centuries. He's just the individual, and there's a lot of guys like him and gals that are creating some interesting technology and new ways of doing things. And this was a good example for sure.
Hey, to wrap this up, I know your time's limited, Mike, but as far as the security industry goes, I'm hearing people are getting laid off, people are getting cut. Do you think we're going to go back to what it used to be in executive protection? Do you think we're going to see continued more remote stuff, more estate stuff like we have been? If you can give the industry some advice on what you see down the road in the next year or so, how is it going to change from your perspective?
I think there could be a reset, but at the same time, security, as you know, we're very, as a population, as a world, we're very reactive. From the industry, we try to teach and try to be proactive. But I think as humans, we're naturally a little more reactive. So just like we saw with COVID, there was a lot of reaction to that. There was a lot of fear factor to that. What happens as we truly come out of COVID? How much does technology change? Do we see more businesses working remotely? If you take a campus that has 25,000 employees and they decide to change their work structure, well, you're not going to need as much physical security. If technology is expanding to where I can cover a larger location with camera systems and different technology, and I don't need as much physical security, well, then I may not have as many guards as I used to have. So I think, yes, I think the industry is going to change. We've seen it change in the last couple of decades. Security, whether it's cybersecurity, it's personal protection, close protection, it's physical security. I still think we have our buckets. But as you can imagine, if you had a few more, I hate to say this, but if our world and our countries began to move in an uncomfortable place where we had, which I do think we're seeing now, we have more of a disparity between classes of people. When you have a lot of high net worth people worth crazy amount of money, you hope that table doesn't turn where they become they're at risk just because they have a certain wealth and they're looked at differently. It's one thing when we look back 20, 30, 40 years ago and you could count a handful of people who had the kind of money that we're seeing today that thousands and thousands of people have. I think we could see targeting that class. If you see more of that, then you're going to see executive protection, close protection, estate security become a bigger deal. I don't know when that tipping point is. I hope I don't see it in my lifetime, but you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see where when you start having that class disparity, you could see more targeting of wealthy people And so we'll see. We'll see what happens across the board. I don't think you're never going to see our jobs in terms of security go away, but we are seeing it done more smartly. And I think within certain sectors, people are maybe sometimes maybe tired of seeing the security guard always in your face. And so we're more out to use technology to offset that until something happens, right? And then as soon as something happens, you want to see physical security again. You want to see the guys in a uniform. So unfortunately, I think it's a combination of being proactive smartly and then being able to respond to when events do occur. Can I answer that question? What the industry looks like in 10 years? Who knows? I mean, honestly, who knows? Security is not going anywhere. That's for sure. It's an industry that's served most of us very well. And I don't see that ever changing for sure. I just think we have to be smarter and we have to be a little more creative. If there's one thing for sure, adversaries will challenge us and they'll challenge us to think outside the box. Because as soon as they come up with a new way to cause us problems, then we have to find a way around that. So I think for companies that are stuck in their ways, those are not the companies that's going to go into the next few decades.
Wow. Yeah, reading somewhere online, I think security in the States is a $50 billion industry or something like that, is what I read. My number might be off.
It's huge. I mean, you just look at our population. Our population is growing. Our assets, the protection of these assets. Like I said, security is not going to go away. It just changes. It modifies. It becomes different. It has a different look. Has a different feel. And the more companies you have out there trying to sell their services, unless you're going to be a Me Too company. So how do you set yourself apart? You wear a different uniform. You're a boutique company instead of a big company. You're more responsive. If you need 50 people, I can give you 50 people tomorrow. If you're a boutique company, I'm not going to get you 50 people tomorrow. So whatever your niche is, you've got to develop it as a company. Some companies are more intelligent driven. Some companies, provide higher trained officers. Whatever your niche is, I think companies have to continue to find ways to set themselves apart. And still stay honorable and still stay, truthful about what you can do. If there's one thing you and I, and probably everybody who may be listening has experienced, that's dealing with companies who overpromise and underdeliver. And that's the kiss of death for any company.
We've seen that many, many times.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I see the market changing and growing. LA used to be the hotbed for security. I think it always will be because you have so much wealth that lives there. I don't think that's ever going to change. You have to just deal with the state of California. That's how labor laws are, and that's just the reality. But I think Vegas is a hot spot, and Texas is always going to be the up-and-coming market, obviously. But I'm hearing a lot about Dubai, too, Abu Dhabi, Dubai. I don't see that being too security needed because it's just the culture is so different over there. They really don't have guns and knives and stuff. They just have a very peaceful culture.
They do. As you may know, I lived in Abu Dhabi for a couple of years on a big project. And the company I work for now has a project in Dubai. I'll be probably heading back over there again. To your point, it's a different culture. Doesn't mean they don't have their risk. It's just different based on the proximity. If you look at these countries, they're a lightning rod themselves. If it's extremist, if it's an Islamic extremist, you probably can't be too happy about what Dubai is doing and the things that they allow in their country. If you are a true, Muslim and you don't like how Dubai sets themselves apart, so those countries are going to have their own battles, and whether it's Saudi Arabia or any of the other GCC countries. But as far as security, I think, you're not going to see, I haven't seen security change in the last 10, 15 years over there, other than you do have a lot more expats working security over there. You see a lot more countries that are doing business in the UAE, as an example. We've seen now more of an opening dialogue between Israelis and the Emiratis working together, which is something that we didn't see a few decades ago. So things are changing. Some things are changing for the good.
Yeah.
But anytime something like that happens, there are obviously individuals out there and groups who are wanting to take advantage of that.
Sure.
And the UAE is sitting right across the Gulf from Iran. We never know when that's going to rear its ugly head, and gets beyond the security and gets more to global conflict realm. I don't know, Mark. That's a whole other conversation. What could happen in the future over there? But it's an exciting place to work. I enjoyed working in the Emirates. Some great people. It was a good experience. I look forward to going back over again.
Yeah, in the years past when I worked for them, they are always the most generous culture I've ever worked around. Very great nice people.
Great people. It's hard to find. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. And folks, if you are trying to figure out who I'm talking to, this is Michael Trott. He is an author of the Protected book that he published a couple years ago. You can find it on Amazon. He is a subject matter expert. He worked in the CIA. Now he's head of security for Discoveryland. He's a globetrotter. He's like Jason Bourne all over the world, all over the place. And he's done some things, and just a good mentor and coach to me in the industry. I've had a lot of extensive conversation with Mike offline, and he's been a good coach and mentor in this industry, and somebody I look up to as far as advice and counsel not to make stupid decisions. And you can make those decisions in this industry. And but just please go into Amazon, look up his book, purchase it. You'll be glad you did, because he actually talks about real things he's done overseas and all around the world. And any parting words you have to offer the audience, Mike?
I don't think for the audience, I would like to say again, congratulations to you. You're setting an example of getting outside of your comfort zone, and what you're doing should be a good example for a lot of other people, not only veterans. So congratulations to you. I know you're 2 years into this. You've had some great conversations, and kudos to you. Again, congratulations, and hopefully other people see what you did and said, you know what, I think I could do whatever this is. Whatever it is that you thought about but you've never done before. I think as we all know, life is short, and there's no guarantee for tomorrow. You and I've talked about that with our fathers and others who have passed, and don't wait for the opportunity to go out there and do interesting things. Make those opportunities happen. Those opportunities may not come to you, but you can go make them happen. And what you did is exactly that. So congratulations to you as well.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for being part of that. And to the audience, Mike's the one that jumped on as my first guest when I first hesitantly asked him to come on. And so he's the one that helped me launch this project. And I didn't know what it was going to become, what it was going to do. And I was nervous as heck. And I think I got over myself on my 25th episode. I kind of realized that no one's going to, shoot me or insult me or whatever. And it was going to be okay.
They still may insult you, but you're okay.
Yeah, I found out I had some haters that were Marines by a certain person that informed me. I'm like, oh, good. They hated Michael Jordan. They hated Tom Brady. Oh, well, live and learn. You're just exposing people of their own insecurities. And, I had to get over my own insecurities when I did this project. And I'm glad I did this, because it's changed my life in a huge way. And I never dreamed of the opportunities that would present themselves without this podcast. It's been a wild ride, and made me grow too. So it's all for the good. And with that said, Mike's got to get some sleep. He's got a multi-million-dollar operation to run over there in Discoveryland in Scotland, and many other projects, I'm sure. So Mike wanted to come on here to celebrate this big accomplishment that we did together about 2 years ago. So here we are, wrapping this up, folks. And please subscribe to YouTube and all my social media platforms, and make a comment on YouTube. If you like it, if you hate us, let us know. We want to know. Make your compliments or whatever you want to do. So with that said, we'll wrap this up, and we'll catch you on the next episode. And thanks for joining us.